Some quick thoughts about the State of the Union that's coming up in a few hours. As I have said before, I don't believe that boycotting the State of the Union is the best idea because it is a constitutional exercise. We all know that Donald Trump is going to lie during the State of the Union as sure as we know that water is wet. But that, I don't think, is enough reason for people to boycott the State of the Union because the State of the Union is a constitutional exercise and it weakens the position of people who are not there, in my mind, to be able to argue and to be able to effectively protest. So this specific State of the Union will be important because of who will be there. On one side, Republicans have invited people who are mentioned in the Epstein files, and Jamie Raskin has invited Virginia Giuffre's family members, and I believe there will be other survivors of Epstein who will be at the State of the Union. That itself is a huge presence, and it's important to note that to see whether Donald Trump is going to say anything about that, about DOJ's investigation, about DOJ's release of the files. Of course, he's going to talk about him being exonerated if he brings it up. But the point is to see whether they come up and whether Donald Trump acknowledges them or whether he says it's sad that, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has to go through the trouble, or that what's his name? Ghislaine Maxwell has to go through the trouble. It's really sad. Instead of focusing on the survivors. So, in terms of boycotting the State of the Union, I've talked about it in a previous episode about why I don't think it's a good idea. Alternate programming will reduce the audience and viewership will go down overall for the State of the Union. But Donald Trump will lie and say that so many Americans watched it, it was record-breaking. And it is a constitutional exercise that I believe shouldn't be boycotted. It gives Trump and MAGA the ammunition to message that Democrats don't want to do their jobs or honor constitutional exercises. And this messaging, the worst that can happen is that messaging will catch on and be exploited by Donald to peddle his one-party unitary executive empire. Versus, I believe, protesting in the chamber like many have done since Obama was called a liar by, I think, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And then whether this be a new tradition or whether this be a disruption, I believe protesting in chambers gives Donald and MAGA no room to say that you're not engaged. And you go down to their level and you interrupt that proceeding, a constitutional exercise, and you protest. You have that right to protest as a member of Congress, and I believe that protesting in chambers is possibly one of the more powerful ways to protest, because not many people have that opportunity to go into the chamber and protest, and we should be wielding that power. Protest in the chamber will be heard and seen worldwide. It will throw Donald off his game, and the worst that can happen is the protester is escorted out of the chamber. So that's what I think about boycotting SCOTUS. Finally, I'd be very interested to see which Supreme Court justice attends the State of the Union. Will they attend? How will they be received in general? And also, since Democrats are saying they're not going to attend, how will the justices be received by the chamber that is going to be overwhelmed by Republicans, by the very absence of the Democrats? I wouldn't be surprised at all if Alito, Thomas, and Kavanaugh were the only ones who attended. I'm not sure whether the other ones will attend or not, whether Chief Justice John Roberts will be there. And if he is there, it'll be interesting to see how Donald Trump greets the justices, if he greets them at all. He most definitely will not be thanking Chief Justice Roberts this time around. So it will be a very interesting dynamic that plays out outside of what is being said at the State of the Union, which we all know is Donald Trump is going to lie. That's not why. That's not in question. What's in question is how we respond to it. And I believe responding to it while being in the State of the Union, in that chamber, and protesting loudly is more effective than boycotting the constitutional exercise that is enumerated in the Constitution. With that said, I hope you all watch the State of the Union and pay attention to these few things. And the rest of it, what Donald Trump says, is a lie. We know he's going to lie. So, there'll be people who are going to fact check. Hopefully, they're going to be quicker about the fact checking. And we all know what the state of our union is. It's fractured, it's weakened, and it's being held together by people who are scrambling to keep up our constitutional edicts. And now that includes the Supreme Court with the tariff ruling. And I believe that the Supreme Court is also going to rule against Donald Trump in the birthright citizenship case. So Donald Trump is not very happy with the judiciary. But it shows that the system of checks and balances is still working. With that said, listen to what he says. Pay attention to how people react in the chambers and what happens with the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, and also how Donald Trump responds to the justices after the tariff ruling. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.